Well, it's that time once again of the week for an AEW Dynamite review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Hello, I'm Mr. Warren Hayes. Today is July 13. I had to check. I had to look over here. Yeah, no, way over there. July 13, 2023. We are going to be reviewing the July 12th edition of Dynamite all together here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite audio podcast format. You can get your hands, you can sink your claws into all of this as much as you want, as easily as you want, because it's everywhere. It being my podcast. So leave a like if you're watching this on YouTube right now. I appreciate it a great deal, and subscriptions also are a big deal. They help grow the channel exponentially. I seem, and I'm not exaggerating. It's always a big deal and it always helps out a great amount. And it's the same thing with 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and 5-star ratings on Spotify. All these things help out. So I would appreciate it, just a little, hey, thanks, Warren. There you go, and then we move on with our day. I'm in a good mood. I am in a fantastic frame of mind because the G1 Climax 33 is about to start in just a couple of days, just this Saturday, and I'm going to be doing that coverage. So listen, if you want to subscribe and get some G1 coverage on top of that, you want some analysis, some reviews, some results, I'll be giving you that on a daily basis because I love the G1. I think the G1 season is fantastic. And I want to dive into it as frequently as possible. And that's what I'll be doing. So daily coverage of the G1 starts this Saturday. So you don't want to miss that. But nothing else is going to be impacted, as far as I know so far. If you're watching this right now, you don't see it on screen. But just over to my left and your right is what was formerly once known as the Warren board. And I've filled it up with my calendar of content. There's a lot of stuff to cover because I still want to do the weekly Mr. Warren Hayes Show, and I still want to do the Collision and Dynamite reviews. I still want to do both. So there's that. So there's that I want to do, that I want to keep on doing. So on top of that, daily stuff for the next 4 weeks or so, right? Because the G1 finishes on August 13th. So there's going to be tons of content. There'll be days where you'll be having double doses of Warren. Is that too much for you? Maybe. Is it too much for me? No, not yet anyway. We'll see how, maybe I'll burn out in the meantime. Maybe this is what'll kill me. Maybe the long-term story of the onset of my stroke is going to come to fruition because of all of what's going to be happening. But in all seriousness, there's going to be a lot of content, a lot of stuff coming up, and the usual Dynamite reviews should not be impacted, nor the Collision reviews or the Mr. Warren Hayes Show proper. Or for the members, the Going Broadway streams either. Everything should be hunky-dory. At least that's the plan. We'll see how reality sinks in afterwards. Let's get to this Dynamite last night from last night. I enjoyed it overall, and this is another week where I'm like, look, there's a lot of stuff here that I should not have liked that I really did like, and there's some stuff that I really didn't like. I'm sure you pretty know off the bat what it is. It is okay. I think there's a lot of talk right now. I'm just trying to not say too many things at once. It's like my thoughts act like a rushing river, and then they hit the dam of my brain, where my brain is like, look, this is great, but we can't articulate physically everything you want to say all at once. That's just not humanly possible. So you have to, go by spurts, Warren. So right now, I feel like wrestling discourse is dominated by the bloodline angle over in WWE. With reason. It is a successful angle for the company. And I'm not here to dispute or talk about whether it's good or not. Observably speaking, it is successful. It is successful in ratings, in ticket sales, in pay-per-view buys, well, PLE views. Wish we could talk all on the same metrics. But it's successful. And most importantly, the World Wrestling Entertainment fan base are gobbling it up. It's like, it's a big bowl of delicious ramen and they're just slurping it all up without an issue. And I think that's it is an angle that is, like I said, taking over a lot of the discourse, because as much as people like it, a lot of people hate it. And because a lot of us see in this, and I talked about this just this week on the podcast, this is where a lot of people are feeling that WWE is going. I'm going to include myself. This is the direction that WWE will be going over the next few years. And it is actually currently prevalent in the way that they train people in NXT. No more promos. They're doing skits. They're doing segments. They're doing vignettes. They're doing stories. But no one is talking people into buildings anymore. That's not what the promo in and about itself is done. So, whatever vision WWE has for what they're doing, in my opinion, is not pro wrestling. It is going to be more and more a teleplay that includes pro wrestling. And we're going to be closer to Lucha Underground than anything else. Now, I don't want to get into that dissertation. You can listen to the podcast. It was the first topic of the podcast this week. If you want to get my full thoughts on that. But here's the thing: this anxiety that a lot of wrestling fans like myself have in regards to the influence that WWE has on the business, and how it will mold and shape the business moving forward. This anxiety, I think, permeates into our appreciation of, or our watching of, Dynamite and Collision as well, because I think now we're all a little more jumpy. We're a little more reactionary when we see things that fall into the camp of sports entertainment, a little more, as opposed to maybe 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. Because, I find that a lot of the criticism around this episode from people that I chat with, people I'd consider peers, colleagues, friends, the opinion that they have around this is, the bloodline, the success of the bloodline is going to seep into AEW, and we're already seeing it with certain things happening on the show. And I would counter argue that by saying AEW has always had a level of sports entertainment to it. There's always been these elements to it. We just have to go back to a couple of years ago during the pandemic, when MJF's first challenge for the AEW World Title, when Jon Moxley was champion, was based around an election campaign, which I thought was a dud. I didn't think it was entertaining in the slightest. So we sort of moved away from that. And MJF is sort of, he enjoys these things, and, the dinner debonair and all these things. These are all things that have been included in the history of AEW. There have been these moments, but I don't feel like the wrestling takes a back seat most of the time. I don't think that I haven't seen that pattern yet, where having great matches on TV is no longer a thing. So I'm approaching last night's Dynamite with care, because there are things that happened on it which, by my own admission, I should hate, but I don't. and I don't feel are necessarily systematically a problem for the company moving forward, as long as the company stays in its original but its original intent of being a place for professional wrestling on a nationwide basis, a true to form alternative to the WWE product. It's asepticized, inorganic, overly produced, overwrought television show. I still feel these elements here in Dynamite. So I'm not as ready to torch the place as a lot of people are, or as some people are throwing their hands up and going, "Oh, this is the end. This is how the bloodline is going to kill all of pro wrestling." I think it's important to be wary about it. I think it's important to be critical about it when it does happen, but I'm not ready to throw in the towel, and I'm not ready to push the panic button. Not yet. I think there have been weeks previous to this where I have hit the panic button. I slapped it down and I said, this stinks, and all of it stinks. Then next thing you know, you get a week of Dynamite where everything feels as it should. And I understand, because I have it myself. The fear that people have that Dynamite will become a WWE Junior because of multiple reasons. They're still there, and everything that I exposed on Tuesday is still very valid. At some point, you can absolutely see AEW's corporate masters, the networks, and coming over to Tony Khan and saying, "Tony, look at the other guys. Look at the amount of money they're doing this thing, but you're focused on this and you're not doing as well. Couldn't you do more of what they're doing?" Because I have a philosophy when it comes to competition in a capitalist society. Competition makes everything the same. It's never a question of what do we want that's different. It's how can we be close to the other success here. I remember when Twitter was 144 characters and was a micro blog, was a micro blogging site. I remember that until it started to expand things to be more like Facebook. Started adding pictures and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, well, everything sort of becomes homogenized and looks alike. Threads was released last week and everyone was like, wow, this is just like Twitter. I'm like, okay. It's like, yeah. And we're patting old Zuck on the back. Same thing with Blue Sky, don't get me wrong. Everyone's patting each other on the back. It's like, good job. But it's like, it's the same fucking thing. People don't want new things in general. They want the same old. They want something they feel comfortable in. That's why Tim Hortons in Canada works so well. That's, because Tim Hortons is the same thing for everyone everywhere, and you know what to expect, and you know how it's going to taste, and you know how it's going to be. And regardless of where you are, whether you're in Miramichi, whether you're in Victoria, British Columbia, whether you're in, Balzac, Alberta, there's your Tim Hortons is going to be the same. You know exactly what to expect. So it's not that they want new things. They want things that people want, things that they feel comfortable in, that they feel that feel similar, that feel the same, that feel comfortable. That's why there's so many people still out there. Because now look, I'm on the threads now. So a lot of the excellent takes of Twitter are following suit over on the threads. And now I'm starting to get re-immersed in that. There are still people complaining about who is Kota Ibushi. We got to stop catering to the hardcores. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing? Are we still doing this? And at what point Do you shake off that and say to yourself, I'm going to try and figure out what's so great about all of this. I'm going to read up at the very least, just read up on the history of this guy and then at least get an understanding, even if I've never seen him wrestle. Oh yeah, he's kind of a big deal, isn't he? But no, we're going to stay in this little box. And it's like, this is not specifically catered to me, so therefore it is a bad thing. That's why I'm saying. That's the trapping. If we're coming full circle on my entire point here, that is the trapping in which AEW could easily fall into because of the growth, because of growth economics, because at some point, they will have to expand their audience. They will have to grow, show that they're doing better than just, stable, fine, doing good. They're going to have to show growth, and they're going to have to expand into something else. And if that way is to try to get people to come in by using the other guy's tactics, well, I think ultimately it's going to fail, because it ultimately is going to fail if you become a copy of the other guys and you just become, so-and-so junior. But again, people like the comfort. They don't like their cages rattled. Getting used to something new requires effort. And a lot of people are not willing or ready to do that kind of job, to put that kind of work into it. They're just content with what they have and will get interested if they get something similar to what they got over here. Am I being a little contradictory here in my point? Maybe. I think I am. A little bit. It's more like an overall... It's more like This is the state of things. And this is how typically audiences and people react. If AEW wants to be true to itself and its original mission and what it's setting out to do, it has to stick to the formula that makes it separate, that makes it special. And I'm not overtly worried about the inclusion of sports entertaining things if they're done well, if they're well included down the line in a good story that leads to a great match, because ultimately that's the payoff. The story is not the point of interest. It is the match. The story is the device to carry us to what you should be into. Typically, there's always exceptions. But as long as we can do that, as long as AEW sticks to that, sticks to its original direction, I think I'm okay. But that's not still going to keep me from pointing it out and saying, this is a little more on the sports entertainment side of things. And look, you'll see as we go along here tonight. And I think it's okay to be critical, and it's okay to be worried. But I'm not slapping any red buttons here. I'm not calling for, I'm not panicking just yet. Let's get into the show. From Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, the SaskTel Center. 3,245 tickets distributed for a 3,896 setup, according to WrestleTix, still early as of this morning, as of recording. And this is a 14,000 seat arena. I mean, look, these aren't doorbusters. This Canadian tour. It's not bad for AEW, but it's not great either. We're a little under the median here. It starts off with the match this week. Chris Jericho defeating Komander. It's 1996 Monday Nitro, folks. Chris Jericho is fighting luchadors on TBS. I love this shit. And if you don't think that backstage, no one has thought of this, I thought this was well put together. Thought Jericho worked hard as well on this one. And kind of like we've been saying for the past couple of weeks, Jericho has to get some heat back. And I think that having these types of matches where he works hard and defeats, well-liked wrestlers, people who show up on the show and people are excited to see, Komander might not be. Komander is not he's not a Bryan Danielson. He's not a Kenny Omega. He's not an Adam Page, but still well-liked. Komander does all of the cool rope walk moves as we're talking about him. The rope walk, shooting star press, and the running rope walk dive. It's not a rope walk, it's a rope run. But then he goes to the ropes once too often for a Dragon Rana, and he is caught by Chris Jericho midair in a fucking great finish, because that leads Jericho into the walls. I loved the finish to this match. I thought it was hot. Just catches him as he's spinning around, gets him perfectly in position for the walls. Great shit. So Komander taps out in the walls. After the match, Don Callis arrives, and he's extending, once again, the invitation to Chris Jericho to join the Don Callis family. He then pulls up old footage from 1995 of him and Jericho when they were both being mentored by Bad News Allin. He's not going to put pressure on Chris Jericho, just thinking about, we used to be pals and we were ready to dominate, and, we made a promise saying that we'd always look out for each other. We made that promise to Bad News. What would Bad News say today? We haven't done anything really together for the past 23 years. Think about what Bad News would have wanted, Chris, when he leaves. I thought that was fun. And it goes into the precept that the lore of professional wrestling is AEW's lore, which is something that I hammer home, but it's still the thing here. You don't have to be secluded into one island here. And you go back to 1995 and you see Don Callis with those fucking locks, and you're like, holy shit, look at this. That was some fantastic footage. You know where I think we're going with this? Because I know, I myself was sitting here going, oh, Chris Jericho's going to be the fifth guy for Blood and Guts. But then they announced this match and I was like, oh, no, he won't then. Didn't quite make wrestling sense then. But you know where I think they're going with this? I think they're setting something up for once the elite BCC stuff sort of has to break apart, because it has to break apart at some point. And I think that what in fact we're doing is we're setting something up for the Jericho Appreciation Society versus Don Callis's group. I think this is where we're going. I don't think Chris Jericho is going to be joining. There's too many, unless it's a complete swerve. But right now, if you follow your wrestling brain, there are too many. They're leaning too hard into things. Last week you had Sammy Guevara and especially Daniel Garcia going, brother, what are we doing? What's going to happen if you leave? And then this week, we could talk about it right now. So, we'll jump ahead. The thing with Jake Hager, because Jake Hager comes backstage to break up with Chris Jericho essentially, and he brings up their history, right? So Jericho this week is confronted by Jake Hager saying, I saved your life in Abu Dhabi, and I gave up my MMA career to come here because you asked, kind of thing. And it's like, so what are we doing moving forward here? Is Jericho going to join Don Callis? I think the more things are going forward, the less it seems probable. So once Don Callis's things with the elite get paid off, I think we're setting up something else moving forward, another little faction war, but this time with maybe a babyface JAS with Don Callis's group of stooges, whoever he's going to get moving forward, right? I think that's a fair assessment, right? And yes, Jake Hager took off the stupid fucking hat. He likes the hat, I get it. Alex Marvez interviews Jack Perry, who's up in his car. He doesn't even get out. I liked his mannerisms here. He puts the window down and, he's looking around from back and forth, left, right, left. He complains about workplace safety. Hook jumps him in the car from the other door. Then they scuffle a bit, but Jack Perry gets away in the car again, and Hook stares down the camera, tells him to keep running. Hook is kind of like Ghostface now. He's like just beelining and just wanting to beat him up. Of course he doesn't have a knife, but he has that energy where he's just like straight line, moving forward. Anyway, this is 3 weeks of this. We're good. Let's get a proper story bump on this next week. And we have Renee Paquette, who's interviewing Don Callis backstage. He just got off the phone. He says he's going to go to the ring to announce the 5th and final member for the Blackpool Combat Club at Blood and Guts all by himself. He said he's not afraid of the gutless coward Kenny Omega, so he's going to be out there all alone. We'll get to that. Then we get the bro session, second bro session between MJF and Adam Cole. They're doing shots in the bar. It's a whole skit once again that was shot. Doing shots in a bar. Then there's 4 women who walk by them, give them the look. MJF is ready to go, but Adam Cole is committed to Britt. So MJF goes off and implicitly bangs all 4 of them. Says some disgusting things. By the way, the 4 women that we had there were Celicia Sparks, Taylor Rising, Alexia Nicole, and Canada's sweetheart, Casey Spinelli. Just in case you're keeping score. Anyway, he comes back and there's this whole thing about the t-shirt, the Better Than You Baby t-shirt. And, Adam Cole saying, I didn't lose. I told you I lost the t-shirt, which is why I didn't wear it, but I didn't lose it. I'll wear it if we do what I want to do next. MJF is like, what do you want to do next? And they cut to the hotel room where the guys are set up to play Fight Forever, a video game. Then MJF is like, what am I doing here? I'm not an incel, whatever it is he says. I don't think he said incel. I'll say it. And MJF says he realizes that playing games with friends is fun, but he doesn't have any friends. And that sort of creates a little moment between the two. Adam Cole says he's cool. He's cooler than he thought. They both share that they were going to turn each other during a match. So I was going to do that too. And then they become resolute to become AEW Tag Team Champions, and they beat FTR in the Fight Forever game. So I don't think I have to paint the picture here in regards to what I was saying at first. And I'm sort of I'm going to re-listen to it, and I hope it's not as disjointed. My opening thoughts on sports entertainment. I hope it's not as disjointed as it seems to feel to me right now. I have a few notes, but I don't script things. It's off the cuff. It's thoughts. So hopefully, but look, calling back to what I talked about, this is absolutely 100% sports entertainment. And this has MJF's fingerprints all over it, right into the match as well, right? Look, maybe I should talk about the match first. You know what? I'm going to talk about the match first and then wrap it all up with a nice little bow here. Because then after this, we get the match. We get the match between. No, it's not just yet. It's a little later. But why don't we just? Hey, let's knock it out of the park. We'll just do this all in one sitting here. A little later on, before the match, Renee Paquette wants to interview Adam Cole, but he's on the phone as well. Busy people, they're getting airtime with Renee Paquette, but they're like, no, sorry, I am talking with persons, and he hangs up to talk to her. They chit chat a bit. Roderick Strong comes in and he says, look, Adam, you're not telling me you're actually liking this guy, right? And Adam Cole tells him, it's like, look, MJF is he's not that bad a guy. And if you remember correctly, Roderick, there was a time that you and I didn't get along, but we eventually became friends. And then he gets a text from Max saying that he just saw Brian Cage and suddenly he has the flu, which I thought was funny. And that sends Adam Cole into a panic and they go off. So that leads us to the match. The Blind Eliminator Tag Team Tournament semis. Adam Cole and MJF defeating Big Bill and Brian Cage. So this was another match that was pretty heavy on the shtick. MJF really leaning hard into the babyface stuff, right? Like in these matches, second week in a row, he's playing Ricky Morton to Adam Cole's Robert Gibson, right? It is basic, old school, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express stuff that they're doing here. And even when they're doing the entrance, right? It's like MJF comes out first and he cuts the music because he wants the babyface theme, the one that people chant to, right? And he's coming around and he points to Adam Cole and he does the ring around the run around the ring and again this week does Roderick Strong's spot at the Bebe thing. So we're doing all of this. Then Big Bill during the match, he being MJF tries to slam Big Bill and he says, oh, he can't, because he's so big. But eventually in the match, Bill tears off the buddy buddy t-shirt off of MJF's back, and that hulks MJF up. It's like, no, you can't do this to my friendship, And MJF does manage to slam Big Bill to a huge reaction before getting the heroic hot tag to Robert Gibson. Brian Cage still manages to do the Samoa drop sack of shit combo because they can't do the double clothesline. They're still teasing that. Heat Seeker boom for the win, though. And after the match, they get on the mic. Cole says that he never expected this team to work, but here we are. They're going to go and win the titles. MJF does more babyface shtick. Are there any devil worshippers here tonight? And so let's bring this all together. Everything we've been talking about MJF and Adam Cole right now. The sports entertainment is heavy here. The skit that they did with the bar and I thought it was a little too hammy. I think it was mostly unnecessary. I liked last week's more than this week's, where it was a little too much on the nose. And I feel like whatever they did in the ring, during to get across their friendship and was much more palpable and interesting than and ultimately success. It could have worked all alone without doing the friendship skits outside. Like it really could have. And I think it was a little too heavy-handed. And I think this is where people are getting a little unnerved in regards because of the bloodline, right? Where it's like we're sacrificing, numerous quarter hours to this when it could really be neatly packed into one. I really do believe that that's something that could happen here. I think they're laying it on a little too thick. And I think it's obvious where this is going. We've been down this path before with MJF, trying to sucker us into believing that he's a nice guy. He's not. We know where this is going. But and frankly, I'm going to tell you This is giving me some very WCW vibes, but in a good way. In a, man, I like these angles. I like this. I think there's something old school about them. There's something very Sting-like about what Adam Cole is doing, cozying up to, the dirtiest player in the game. Like, I'm seeing Sting Ric Flair parallels here. And if Adam Cole is going to be a modern day Sting because he himself is a very nice guy, and this is a shoot. Everyone likes Adam Cole. Everyone thinks he's a good guy. If he's going to be just too trustworthy and his heel sensibilities have been completely turned off because he's a new man, after the injury, he had to reevaluate his life, and he's not going to carry grudges or whatnot. I think I think we see where we're going with this, right? I think the path is clear. MJF is going to be a rat bag, and he's going to turn on Adam Cole, and Adam Cole is going to be left in the dust. Or we could see the opposite. Like, if you want to really push this, if we want to do the CM Punk MJF feud, and when I say if, I mean when we do it, which is something that has to happen. I mean, let's say you want to do this for Full Gear. Does CM Punk, are we going to be able to turn CM Punk heel in the meantime, right? Because from everything we've heard, that's the plan, but CM Punk wants to be a heel, but creative wants him to be a babyface for now. But the babyface thing seems to be working. But if you want to turn him heel, if CM Punk is meant to be a heel and he's supposed to fight MJF, shouldn't MJF have a little more babyface sensibilities? There's been people who've been saying, I want a babyface run for MJF. I still don't understand it. But maybe that's a path that they do want to take, and maybe Adam Cole is going to fuck him over with Roderick Strong, and that this was a ruse all along by Adam Cole. Maybe this is the big swerve. Because the story all along has been, Adam Cole is outsmarting MJF. Now, the impression that we're having here over the past couple of weeks with the bro sessions is MJF is using emotional intelligence to sucker Adam Cole into letting his guard down. But it might be the opposite. Look, I think both scenarios have a level of viability depending on how you want the CM Punk match with MJF to go down. All that aside, I thought the shtick in the ring was well done because it called into wrestling, old wrestling tropes where the babyface tries to do something, is something insurmountable. And when he did slam Big Bill, everyone was up off of their feet. It worked. It connected. And MJF, made a tweet about it, about, slamming Big Bill in front of 93,000 fans. Finally, I was able to do it. This shit is fun. And again, I'm cognizant of the fact that I should be hating all of this. But the difference with when WWE does this kind of stuff is that all of this feels organic and natural, and it doesn't feel stilted. Plus, it's done by two pros who understand the business. They're students, they're lovers of the game, and who can make this work because they're talented enough to make it work, both in the ring and outside too, for those vignettes and shots to work. Charismatic, talented, smart, capable guys doing this. Don't get me started when, when Damon Kemp and DJ Carl get together to do one of these little backstage segments. They're stilted. It's awkward. It's embarrassing. It's cringy. because they don't have the stuff to pull it off. These guys do. So I don't mind this, because on top of it, it's hearkening back to tropes that we've seen before that we haven't like seen in this way for a while. It feels throwbacky. It feels natural. Does that make sense? I feel like this angle still feels natural. I think they could do less video, less packages, because the in-ring stuff is working. The in-ring stuff really is connecting, and I think that's where the important beats of the story should continue to be told. Like, it really doesn't. I don't need them bonding over playing Fight Forever together for me to understand that Adam Cole is warming up to MJF. I'm seeing it throughout these matches. Is MJF laying it on thick? Sure he is. He knows what he's doing. Anyway, so we got that out of the way. Let's move back a little bit. We'll rewind a little to the first Blind Eliminator tag team semifinal that we had, where Daniel Garcia and Sammy Guevara defeated Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy, which I did not see coming at all. But I thought this match was a blast. In this match, Sammy and Daniel showed a little bit of discord, but it didn't play all the way through. Darby Allin does one of his tremendous dives to the floor, but he gets double teamed. Is Darby Allin in North America, is he the only guy who does dives, like dives, putting the suicide in suicide dive, like I like to say, as they should be done? Because most guys who do dives now, and gals, they put their hands forward and push the person. They don't, it's never the body that comes into contact. They use their arms and they push forward. Darby doesn't give a shit. And I think he's the only guy who actually does a dive like a dive was intended to be. Orange Cassidy eventually gets the hot tag, lands a scoop Michinoku driver on Garcia, who then locks in a Dragon Tamer. We get DDTs and a Stun Dog Millionaire by the Babyfaces and a Beach Break by Cassidy. Then, out of nowhere, Prince Nana shows up to get Garcia to use Darby Allin's skateboard on the floor. This distracts everyone, which then allows Swerve Strickland to run in out of nowhere and kick Allin while the ref is unaware. Back in the ring, Sammy gets the win after a GTH. Sammy doesn't like the way they won, apparently, because he's a babyface now, coming out to those non-existent babyface reactions. Oh, bookers and their pet projects, am I right? But he still got the win, and so our finals are going to be Garcia and Guevara versus Adam Cole and MJF, which I think is pretty cool. But I definitely was not expecting the babyfaces here to lose, and this would actually set up some things for a little later. I liked the match. I thought it was good. I thought it was a blast, actually. We get another Nick Wayne vignette where he talks about how his career began and his dad, Buddy Wayne, his passing and how it affected him. And look, I've followed Nick Wayne's career, so I'm already aware of the guy and his history and so on and so forth. But in our group chats, I wrote this. It's like, I don't see how anyone cannot get behind this kid anymore. Like, if you're unfamiliar with everything he had been doing in GCW on the indies in general, I don't see how you can. I really don't see how then you see this vignette and you don't support this kid. Like, that was the most earnest, wonderful. His buildup to this point has been spot on great. I refute anyone who talks about video packages and should have been built. Yeah, this was spot on perfect. And I don't know how you could not be rooting for this kid moving on. I really don't. And if you need 3 weeks, if you needed 3 more weeks of that to get you feeling, to get you invested. I don't know. I don't want to make any assertions that will get me into trouble. Let's put there you go. So we'll skip forward some of the matches, some of the Adam Cole MJF stuff, and the Jake Hager breakup with Chris Jericho. We already talked about that. We had the Owen Hart Foundation's women's tournament semifinal match. Ruby Soho defeated Skye Blue. This was fine, I guess. Look, we're trying to throw Skye Blue in the deep end, and you have to do that sometimes. That's fine, but she still needs work. I don't know what to tell you. I know people get it. I know why people get excited when she comes out, but, you know, when it comes down to it, I'm watching pro wrestling, and this was so incredibly uneven. And Ruby Soho is uneven. You know, she'll deliver, you know, in a match, and then in another one, she'll meander through one, and then it's, I don't know. I think last week's match against Britt was worse, I think. I hate this. I really do. I really do. Because I want to jump out of my seat, and I want to scream to the heavens that AEW's women's division is must watch, must see, cannot miss. And then like 2 weeks in a row, we get matches from the women's division where I'm like, come on. It's not by lack of talent. It's not by not having the right people. There's depth to the people that they have employed right now. There's just people that we're trying to push forward. That's just like, I don't know. Ruby Soho gets the win with the no future, but it's such a mishmash of issues in AEW. You know, it's like on one hand, yes, more. It can always be solved by putting women in matches more often on a weekly basis, so that they will get their footing, so that they'll feel important, so that the audience will also get into them more easily as well. But then when the output is this, you're giving arguments to, well, no, we don't need more, because look, we give them this one match. We have one match of the women's division here, and it sort of flounders. But then I'm like, yeah, but it's such a balancing act. And right now everything is sort of hanging towards this all stinks when it should not. There's too many good professional wrestlers in the women's division to be content to go, well, you know, we tried. And then, look, I could probably talk about this for another 30 minutes, but the balancing act, and I appreciate it, the balancing act between, you know, giving more time to the women and pushing the right women, while also giving women who are on the rise, like Skye Blue, time in which sometimes they might not be able to deliver or follow through or give us like this exceptional match. I think it's a delicate it's a delicate act to balance. I concur with that, and I agree. But I can't help but think that the less you put them on, the less important they'll feel. And it's got to be demotivating for the women at the same time, where it's like, well, we're just relegated to these little corners and we're not spread out. We're not feeling big, you know? We're not, you know, Britt turned herself into a superstar because she became more prevalent on the shows. You know, even when she was injured that one time, she was still on TV. She was still cutting promos. She was in the wheelchair. She was doing all that shtick, and that helped get her over. But not everyone is Britt and can get over that way. The only other way to get over in AEW is by your in-ring. And, you know, Skye Blue has to start showing something. I understand she's a work in progress, but there's a lot of people on that roster who are not works in progress and can go. It's a hard one, and I appreciate I appreciate the difficulty, but it's hard to reconcile when you do have a very deep roster of talent. It might not be numerous, might not be the most sizable women's division, but you do have depth to it, and you're not showcasing that depth. You know, Athena has to come back from Ring of Honor at some point, and she has to become one of the staples of the women's division, and not just in the TBS environment, like in the women's division. And that's another thing. We have to, well, like I said, I could talk about this for 30 minutes, but I want to continue on here because I don't want to keep you folks on too long. Then we had Harley Cameron's music video. I have zero good things to say about this because I loathe everything QTV is about. This is the worst of sports entertainment. This is what makes me cringe. This is what makes me switch the channel if someone comes in and doesn't watch pro wrestling. This is the stuff that does nothing for me. And this is more dangerous, in my opinion, than Adam Cole and MJF doing an odd couple bit that translates into the ring. I have no time for this. But Warren, she was able to quote Marcus Mathers, also known as Eminem. I couldn't give a shit. I had my time with Eminem back in the day. That's fine. Don't get me wrong. I couldn't give a shit. This is not what I want when I'm watching pro wrestling. Swerve Strickland defeated Nick Wayne in his debut. Fantastic debut despite the loss, for being completely honest, because I could only imagine how nervous Nick Wayne was here. But everything was done to make sure Nick was in a good position. Had Darby do the vignette, had Darby, walk him out, not come ringside, just walk him out and be a coach kind of thing, leave Nick Wayne fly by his own wings, because Darby said in his vignette last week, Nick's a tough guy, he's a tough kid, he doesn't need me, but I'm still going to be there for him, in the sense that, I'm not going to carry him around like and so that came across this week when Darby decided to stay back, show support, but stay away. Even when he came out during the match, he stayed up on the ramp. He didn't come down ringside because he wanted Nick to have the shine. So they did that, and they put him in the ring with Shane Strickland, another Pacific Northwest guy. So the Pacific Northwest crew, who all work together, who all know each other, who all have, complicity amongst each other, they bring him out, and they have him have Nick Wayne have his debut with. Like, everything was set for Nick Wayne to succeed, and Nick Wayne succeeded. This was a good, solid, well-executed match that had some great high spots, some fantastic drama, and a surprising finish, but one which opens up some possibilities. Avalanche Poison Rana and a cutter by Nick Wayne leads to a cover, but Prince Nana puts Swerve's leg on the ropes. Nick tries another Super Rana, but it's reversed into a top rope powerbomb by Swerve, who lands the side kick, covers, Nick Wayne kicks out, and then he snaps the arm back, and Swerve is staring right at Darby, and he snaps the arm back. Nick does a fantastic job selling. JML driver for the win. And Darby's not pleased, and Swerve is like, you feel like they're setting something up for Swerve and Darby, which makes sense, and Nick is going to be a part of this. So I'm a little torn, because on one end, I'm like, why couldn't you have the kid win his debut? And I'm not saying strap the rocket pack to him. That's not what I'm saying. But couldn't you have him win the debut? You really could. But 18-year-old coming in, still, at least for AEW fans, a rookie. Again, Swerve, established superstar Swerve. I think there's a good story here to set up for Nick Wayne to eventually mount the comeback, have a second match, and then probably get the win. And I think that's a compelling story. And in the meantime, there's clearly something bubbling, like I said, between Darby and Swerve. There's clearly something happening there that they're going to lean into and have the Pacific Northwest guys have at it, which I think is great because they really do all, from what I understand, they all get along and they all have great chemistry with each other. Now, I can get behind, let's revisit this when we see what happens to Nick Wayne in a couple of months. Because it would not be shocking for Tony Khan to get a hot young prospect and then lose interest or not do him right, not book him in a way that makes him feel special, like he can be part of the future of the company or pro wrestling for that matter. And, I think certain criticisms regarding Konosuke Takeshita are fair. I think Tony should have pulled the trigger on Konosuke Takeshita earlier than he has. Because I think the, AEW audiences just took to him. And I think it could be the same thing with Nick. But then he sort of he loses interest. Or, he cycles him out when he should be pushing him a little harder, right? You can look at Ricky Starks and you can go, it's kind of the same thing. So, it's Tony Khan's booking is not perfect and it has shortcomings. And, Nick Wayne can fall easily into one of these shortcomings right here. He really can. So we have to I'm going to keep an eye on this. We're going to see how this evolves. Because on the flip side, AEW also has a solid history of following through on things. Not everything, but on things that matter, on things that are there is follow through. Again, it's not perfect. Swerve and Keith Lee is definitely a great example of that there was never any true follow through on it. But you could revisit it any time, but that's not the point here that I'm trying to make, is that there is a history, a more successful history of stories playing out in an interesting way as opposed to just. But I thought it was a great debut. I think he looked fantastic in he being Nick Wayne, despite losing, because Swerve was just too vicious. That arm snap was a fantastic spot, and it was sold magnificently by Wayne. It all made sense. He just got outclassed. Next time, and the next time should come sooner than later. Next time might be different. And then this leads us all into the main event segment. Don Callis comes out all by himself to announce the fifth man. He starts insulting Kenny Omega. So what happens? Kenny Omega comes out and he's about to get real gnarly with Don. But Jon Moxley and Konosuke Takeshita run in and Pac ambushes Kenny with a chair. Pac is the fifth man, and I think this is brilliant. I think this is absolutely brilliant. And if your first thought is, but what about Death Triangle? Come on. Just keep this excited for next week, because Pac is a vicious son of a bitch as well. It fits in this context. Does this mean he's joining Blackpool Combat Club? Or these are questions that don't need to be answered right now. Because next week we've got a brutal team of killers and a guy that absolutely can fill that Bryan Danielson space of just being methodical and vicious and reckless. I mean, that's fantastic, and I'm glad to see Pac back. Ha! He gets on the mic and he tells a trapped Omega. Omega's got, he's got a chair scarf. He says, "You broke my nose bone." which popped me. And he's been waiting for this for so long. But then Kenny says, we have a fifth man too. Lights go off. We get a video package because he's not there. We get Kota Ibushi confirmed. Confirmed. And then the lights come back up. The Hung Bucks are there to drive off the heels. Kenny cuts a rah-rah promo at the end about heart and friendship and love conquering all, or something to that effect. The Golden Elite are back together. I got some chills. I got some shivers. I thought this shit ruled. That is for me. This is for me. And this is why I'm like, you know what? Have your sports entertaining bits. Because then when you turn around and you get Kota Ibushi coming out, you get the world's Golden Elite being popped off on AEW television. I'm like, all right, this shit fucking rules. And yes, the Elite are going to win next week, and they fucking should. Because this is elevative. It feels good. It's a feel-good moment, and let's carry that. We should get the feel-good moment next week too. This rules. It all rules. Kota Ibushi coming into AEW. Is it a one shot? Is it a deal? Who cares? Who knows at this point? All I know is that next week they are bringing Kota Ibushi into a ring, into 2 rings that are going to be surrounded by a cage. And if that prospect doesn't make you understand, like, he's the bloodlust that is going to grow within Kota Ibushi, I don't know what to tell you. I'm excited about this. And I'm going to tell you, if you're excited about it, let yourself be excited. Stay off Twitter, stay off the threads, because the bad takes are all there. Because the same thing happens. I can't believe that we are still doing this. That we're still sitting here saying, why are we always catering to the hardcores? I don't know who this guy is. I don't know how this is happening. I don't know how anyone can have this discourse when 2 years of Forbidden Door have been massive successes on North American soil. I do not know how anyone can still grasp that argument and figure that it's still something that we should be discussing at this point. Because that makes no sense. No sense at all. Because it's been shown that the wrestling fans who do live outside of a certain universe appreciate these things and know who these people are. Saskatoon exploded when Ibushi popped up on screen. Why wouldn't they? So we have to stop pretending that just because you're not watching Japan, that you don't know who this person is, that suddenly this is for a niche market. We have to stop this because the niche market is bigger than you think. Because we fill out arenas. We fill out NBA hockey arenas, 14,000, 17,000 people. 140,000 pay-per-view buys watching these shows. We have to stop pretending that these are for hardcores, that this is for like a select group of people, who were trading DVDs and tapes back in the day, about 100 people, that this is done for the subscribers of the Observer. We got to stop this shit. We got to stop it. And we have to stop saying that. We have to start realizing that there is an audience for professional wrestling that is just outside of a bubble that you've been acclimated to, that you just have never decided to go out of. So we have to stop responding to these people. We have to stop giving them life on Twitter. We even have to counter argue them. There's no point in it. Because as smart, and not in the wrestling jargon, intelligent fans go, you, my A+ audience, I include you in this. You know by the data and the facts that there is a substantial audience that is watching our quote-unquote hardcore product. We're not doing this for 1,000 fans every week. AEW is doing this for over 800 to 850,000 per week on Wednesday nights. So far, they've been doing it for about 500,000 people on Saturdays. We have to stop pretending that this is some fucking weird niche market just for weirdos. We have to stop, because it doesn't connect anymore. These are people who are absolutely outside of the business that follow WWE, and good for them. But I'm going to let myself get excited because Kota Ibushi is there. And if you're excited about it, you should be too. And anyone else, I mute them, block them, unfollow them. You do not need their commentary, their analysis in your life. It's poison, adds nothing, and is disconnected from what is going on. And they're going to try to make you believe that because it's on, Roman Reigns is on Fox, that Roman Reigns is part of the pop culture. It's false. Wrong. John Cena, people know who he is. Dwayne Johnson, people know who he is. Stone Cold Steve Austin, people know who he is. People don't know who Roman Reigns is. We got to stop with this. And the other thing, and this is the aging hipster in me that's coming out here, just because it's not the mainstream thing doesn't mean that it's not good. But I am exhausted that 2 years after we got 2 Forbidden Door shows in the can, and people still have the guts to tweet out that, oh, this is for hardcores. It's okay to be on the outside looking in. But then when you commentate on it, you're just showing your ass. Showing that you don't understand jack shit. So stop. And to you, stop giving these people air. Stop it. Give me air. Give me likes. Give me subscriptions. Give me 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Give me 5-star ratings on Spotify. God damn it. We're going to wrap it up today. I'm fired up now. I'll be back on Saturday for the first of the G1 for my G1 coverage. This is daily coverage. Daily coverage for only you hardcores. You weirdos. Otherwise, I'll be back on Sunday for the Collision review. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'll see you next time. I'm gonna go cool